Welcome to History Recapped. Today we take you on a deep dive into one of the most legendary conflicts of the ancient world, the Second Punic War. Fought between Rome and Carthage from 218 to 201 BCE, the Second Punic War was a clash of empires that produced some of history's greatest military feats, the rise of iconic generals like Hannibal Barca and Scipio Africanus, and battles that are still studied in military academies today. In this comprehensive documentary, we will follow the causes, battles, strategies, and aftermath of this titanic struggle. Part 1. Background, the First Punic War and its consequences. Before we talk about the Second Punic War, it's important to understand the historical context and how Rome and Carthage became bitter rivals. The First Punic War, fought from 264 to 241 BCE, was a brutal 23-year conflict primarily over control of Sicily. Rome, initially a land power with no significant naval force, managed to build a formidable fleet and eventually defeated Carthage, which had been a dominant maritime empire for centuries. After its defeat, Carthage had to pay a crippling indemnity to Rome and surrender Sicily. The Carthaginians also lost Sardinia and Corsica, further weakening their influence. The loss humiliated Carthage and left a deep desire for revenge simmering beneath the surface of their society. One of Carthage's generals, Hamilcar Barca, who had fought in the First Punic War, vowed to restore Carthaginian power. He turned his attention to expanding Carthage's holdings in Hispania, modern-day Spain, creating a new power base rich in resources and manpower. His son, Hannibal Barca, grew up in this environment of resentment and ambition, setting the stage for the next great confrontation. Part 2. The rise of Hannibal. Barca was born around 247 BCE, during the final years of the First Punic War. From a young age, he was instilled with hatred for Rome. According to legend, his father, Hamilcar, made him swear an oath to be Rome's eternal enemy, placing his hand upon a sacrificial altar as he pledged his lifelong hostility. Hannibal grew into a brilliant military commander. After his father's death and the subsequent assassination of his brother-in-law, Hasdrubal, Hannibal took command of the Carthaginian forces in Spain. He quickly expanded Carthaginian influence, subjugating local tribes and building a strong army. By 219 BCE, Hannibal laid siege to Saguntum, a wealthy city allied with Rome, but located south of the agreed Carthaginian sphere of influence. Rome protested and demanded Hannibal withdraw, but he refused. When Hannibal captured Saguntum after an 8-month siege, Rome declared war. Thus began the Second Punic War. Part 3. Hannibal's incredible Alpine crossing. One of the most famous feats of the ancient world is Hannibal's crossing of the Alps. In 218 BCE, Hannibal led an army of about 50,000 infantry, 9,000 cavalry, and approximately 37 war elephants from Spain through Gaul and over the treacherous Alpine mountains into Italy. The journey was one of the most daring military maneuvers in history. Hannibal and his men faced freezing temperatures, narrow and dangerous mountain paths, avalanches, and attacks from hostile local tribes. By the time Hannibal reached the Po Valley in northern Italy, his army had been reduced by nearly half. Despite the losses, his audacity stunned Rome. No one had ever imagined an invasion of Italy through the Alps. Part 4. Hannibal's early victories. Hannibal's campaign in Italy became legendary for his series of early victories against Roman forces. In the winter of 218 BCE, at the Battle of Trebia, Hannibal lured the Romans into crossing a freezing river. Once the Romans were wet, cold, and exhausted, Hannibal's cavalry and concealed troops ambushed them from the sides, killing thousands. In the following year, 217 BCE, Hannibal orchestrated another masterful ambush at Lake Trasimene. Taking advantage of the narrow terrain along the lake, Hannibal trapped the Roman army between the water and his hidden forces in the hills. The Romans were massacred. Over 15,000 Roman soldiers were killed, and the Roman consul Gaius Flaminius died on the battlefield. These victories sent shockwaves through Rome. Hannibal was now freely roaming the Italian countryside, and Roman citizens feared that the very city of Rome would fall. Part 5. The Battle of Cannae, the perfect ambush. In 216 BCE, Rome raised one of its largest armies to date to face Hannibal. With around 80,000 men, twice the size of Hannibal's force, the Romans planned to crush him with sheer numbers. At the plains of Cannae, Hannibal executed one of the most brilliant tactical maneuvers in military history. He arranged his troops in a convex crescent-shaped formation. As the Roman legions advanced, they pushed into Hannibal's center, which gradually retreated, drawing the Romans in further. Then Hannibal's troops on the flanks and cavalry circled around and encircled the Roman forces from the sides and rear, trapping them in a deadly pocket. It is estimated that between 50,000 to 70,000 Roman soldiers died in a single day at Cannae. The battle became the textbook example of a double envelopment and is still taught in military academies around the world today. Part 6. The war stretches on. After Cannae, many of Rome's southern allies defected to Hannibal, believing Rome was finished. However, Rome refused to surrender. The Roman Senate decided to continue the war and adopted the Fabian strategy, named after Quintus Fabius Maximus. Instead of engaging Hannibal directly, the Romans avoided pitched battles, harassed his supply lines, and engaged in a war of attrition. Meanwhile, Hannibal was hampered by Carthage's reluctance to send substantial reinforcements. His war elephants died off, his troops dwindled over time, and despite his tactical brilliance, he could not break Rome's will to resist or capture the city itself. Part 7. Scipio Africanus rises. Rome eventually found a new military leader who could challenge Hannibal, Publius Cornelius Scipio, later known as Scipio Africanus. Scipio first proved himself in Spain, where he captured the key Carthaginian city of Carthago Nova and defeated Hannibal's brother Hasdrubal in a series of battles. By conquering Spain, Scipio deprived Carthage of its main source of wealth and military manpower. With Spain secured, Scipio set his sights on North Africa. His plan was to force Hannibal to leave Italy by threatening Carthage directly. Part 8. The Battle of Zama, the final showdown. In 202 BCE, Scipio led an invasion of North Africa. Hannibal was recalled from Italy to defend his homeland. The two generals met at the Battle of Zama, not far from Carthage. Hannibal commanded about 40,000 men and had a contingent of war elephants. Scipio had a similar number of troops, but he had a significant advantage in cavalry thanks to alliances with the Numidian king Massinissa. At Zama, Scipio expertly handled Hannibal's elephants, creating lanes in his formations to let the beasts pass harmlessly through. The Roman and Numidian cavalry defeated Hannibal's horsemen, leaving his infantry exposed. After a fierce battle, Scipio's forces overwhelmed Hannibal's army. Hannibal suffered his first and only major defeat on the battlefield. Part 9. Aftermath of the Second Punic War. Carthage was forced to accept humiliating peace terms. They had to surrender their fleet, pay an enormous indemnity over 50 years, and give up all overseas territories. They were also forbidden from waging war without Rome's permission. Rome emerged from the war as the dominant power in the Western Mediterranean, setting the stage for centuries of Roman expansion. Hannibal, though defeated, retained his honor and became a statesman in Carthage. However, Rome pursued him relentlessly. To avoid capture, Hannibal eventually took his own life in exile. Scipio Africanus returned to Rome as a hero. He was celebrated for saving the Republic and securing Rome's dominance over Carthage. But 10. Legacy of the Second Punic War. The Second Punic War reshaped the ancient world. Rome transformed from a regional power into an imperial force with colonies and client states throughout the Mediterranean. Carthage, though weakened, survived for a time, but the memory of the Punic threat would lead to the Third Punic War decades later, resulting in Carthage's complete destruction. The war introduced new tactics, military strategies, and demonstrated the resilience of Rome. It showcased leadership on both sides, Hannibal's tactical genius and Scipio's strategic brilliance. The Second Punic War remains one of the greatest conflicts in history, filled with lessons in leadership, perseverance, and the complexities of imperial ambition. Thank you for watching History Recapped. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Second Punic War, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment about what moment in history you'd like us to cover next. Until next time, keep learning and keep history alive.